Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Tracking Down the Tapes. Today I'm looking back at my own recording of my only show that ever went to air, technically on Australian commercial television. This is community television though. This isn't one of the main television networks. I would never get a show on anything more than community television. This was my debut on the big screen, the small screen. And it's my game show, Friday Challenge Games. I've never spoken about this in any video before. It's probably because it's a little bit embarrassing. It's when I was much younger and I was obsessed with making my own version of my favorite show as a kid, Big Brother Friday Night Live.
We might be on television. We might be on TV.
And I did everything I could to get one episode made. It was a lot of work. I started making this in April 2013. That's when I started preparing everything for the show. And it took until March 2014 to actually get an episode produced, but I actually somehow achieved it. Obviously, I was 14 years old, so the show only had one episode. I wasn't capable of making more than a pilot episode, even if the show did get approved. But guys, would you ever believe it? The show wasn't approved by Channel 31. The original editing of it was horrific. It was the worst edited thing I've ever made. Obviously, as a 14-year-old, I didn't know how to edit anything. I tried for a couple of months to find an editor, a very experienced editor. The best I could find were high school students who were really passionate about editing the episode, but they kept kind of saying, oh, my friend was going to edit it with me. And we've had a falling out and now we're not friends anymore. So I had to take matters into my own hands 2 or 3 months after it had been recorded, and I had no clue what I was doing editing it. Now when I look back at the original edit, I'm actually kind of proud of it, considering I had no clue what I was doing. It looks terrible visually. I did this thing where I exported it over and over and over. Every single time I did a segment, I'd export that, and then I'd put the exported version in a new timeline. So I knew what I was doing in terms of compression and how that shit works, because it ended up looking like complete vomit. And I sent that version over to Channel 31 to see if they approved it. I was 100% sure they were going to approve the show and I'd be able to make more episodes, even though most of the cast hadn't signed on to more episodes and had no interest in returning for it. I was still a super passionate kid and I really wanted to make it, and when they said no, they're not approving it, I was absolutely devastated. But as the months and especially the years went on, I kind of appreciated the fact that I managed to make at least one episode. No one thought I'd be able to make one episode. I didn't think at many points that I'd be able to make one episode. It's a complete shock to me still watching this back that it even got produced. It's cringe. Of course it is, but it's my first ever production. And this is the first ever Tracking Down the Tapes tape that wasn't a tape. It's a shitty digital recording done off Channel 31 on my crappy video file recorder that is no good at recording in regular digital. It's good at recording in HD, but of course Channel 31 ran on a regular digital signal, a 576p signal. It didn't run on 720p or 1080p back then. This was 2018 when the show finally aired. But wait, how could I air a version that I edited in 2014 that looked absolutely horrific? It looked like vomit. How does that go to air? Well, I found a bunch of original copies of the recording. I found the original video files on an old busted up hard drive that I somehow recovered files from that just didn't work, and I needed to pirate a software to get the files off. And I found these files and I thought, I gotta edit it now. I'll never edit it if I don't do it now. It has to be done. So I finished the edit of it. One thing that was missing was the original audio. It had room audio, so I had to find that on an old busted up computer that was like from 2007. So there was a lot of things that came into play for this being finally finished. It took an entire week to make it, and I obviously did the whole thing from scratch. I didn't reference anything from the original edit because that just looked like vomit, and it was poorly edited as well. So amazingly, I sent that version over to Channel 31 and I asked them, look, this was my dream when I was like 14 years old. I really wanted this to go to air and it just never happened. So please help me out here. Help me get this shit on the air. It really was not as good as Australia's Naughtiest Home Videos. It was a shocker. And he kind of understood that I was trying to fulfill like a childhood dream, something that I badly wanted like 4 years ago. And you know, I was 18 by then and I was 14 when I made it. So it was a bit of a time difference for me. I wasn't as obsessed with it, obviously, but I'd gone to all this effort to re-edit the whole thing. So I may as well put it on TV. And the person said yes. He watched it and he's like, look, it fits broadcasting standards as long as you don't really care when it goes to air. And I said, I don't. Air it whenever you want. Air it at like 4 in the morning. I couldn't give a shit. He was like, sure, we'll air it. And I was just thinking, this is the coolest thing. I'm 18 years old and I've got a show that's going to air. I made it when I was 14 and I didn't really need to do anything by then. Most of it had been created because all the hard work was when I was younger. It took a shit ton of work just to get one episode filmed. Editing it was not really a big deal. I'd, developed a lot of skills in editing over the last 4 years between 2014 and 2018. So that wasn't an incredibly tough challenge, but to get it on TV was incredible. It was the 21st of July, 2018 at 1 o'clock a.m. and Friday Challenge Games aired on Australian TV. LSN, this TV show, I don't know what it stands for, and then Guitar Gods and Masterpieces played after that, and then Friday Challenge Games went to air. And let me tell you guys, the coolest thing is when you get the 10-day TV guide, the TV guide that shows what's on for the next 10 days, and you see your show appear in it for the very first time. That is definitely the most rewarding thing. And for me, this was the only episode of any show and the only TV show that I ever got on television. So to see this come up in the TV guide for the first and only time was quite special. And it's something that I'll always hold close to me. I saved about 20 versions of screenshots of it being in the TV guide. I've lost all of those. I think they're on a corrupt hard drive, so I'd love to fix that one day and get those, but just trust me, guys. It was cool. This is more of a story time, tracking down the tapes. This isn't one where I look at commercials. I mean, I could look at the commercials. There's Vista RV crossover. There's Tripodi Wholesales, a record store, vintage records in Mordialloc. Basic shit, 2018, there's no real nostalgia value. They're just local businesses in the commercials. I think there's a solar company as well. There was only 2 commercial breaks and they only put 2 places in the commercials, only 2 advertisements. And I was kind of let down. I was like, oh man, I wish I had like 2 3-minute commercial breaks so it was the proper my show on TV experience. And I thought they'd do that because it was only 20 minutes long. It met the bare minimum of how long a TV show is meant to go for. And I was like, it's still aired on television. It still has commercials. If they didn't add commercial breaks, I would have been like, oh man, what was the point? It would have been annoying. Earlier this year, a person I know named Kevin, who does Topaz Labs AI remasters of different shows, he remastered the shitty 576i version that aired on TV and he made it into 4K AI. And it looks incredible. It looks the same as the exported version of the show. And that's really awesome for me because it has the TV channel logo in the corner. It has obviously the commercials upscaled. The whole thing looks amazing. So I have a huge appreciation for what he did for me with that. That's incredible. Didn't cost me any money. Did it for free, which is so cool. So to have that forever in good quality now is amazing. And my presentation of the show, I look back at it and it's not too bad. It's cringe, obviously, the way I present the show, but I was under a lot of pressure when we recorded it. It was the end of the recording day when we did the host bits. It was all recorded on the same day. The studio parts and the games were recorded in the same location. The studio wasn't a studio, it was a cabin at a holiday park made to look like some kind of crappy studio. And I had to do all my host reads in like 35 minutes or less. And I nailed all of them. I'd been practicing the script for a long time, so it wasn't going to be a big deal. I just had to alter it for the results of what had happened on the show earlier in the day. And the show was real. It wasn't rigged. The winner was a genuine winner. She won the show. She didn't want to be there. None of the contestants wanted to be there. They realized, what the fuck have we signed up to? I think they thought it was going to be a genuine production ran by the youth organization that helped me with it, Sin Media. It was just me and my parents. It's absolutely dogged those poor people. I apologize to this day. I'm sorry. That's freaking dog. But it's really, really cool that this was able to happen. And to look back on it is super special for me. It holds a special place in my heart. The visuals of it are shocking, especially the studio and how the lighting changes within like 30 seconds of me talking about one thing and another. That's because at the end of the day, we realized we didn't actually do cutbacks from the break. We just kind of kept going with different results, and I didn't really present it properly because I was under time constraints, so it was ridiculous. The most satisfying thing was the forecast of the day. This is the last thing I'll explain about it because there's not much more to really cover with this memory. It was meant to be pouring rain the entire day on the forecast, and I was just like, no, this is the only day it can be done. This is the only time that I can get all these people here to record it. What am I gonna do? And so I was just thinking, this is the worst. It's windy. It's going to be pouring rain. This is going to be a disaster. The rain held off incredibly. The shoot was scheduled from like 1:30 to like 3:30. It finished at 4:30 or 4:45. We actually managed to get it all done in such a short space of time. I don't know how, but we got it done. And the weather held off. All the contestants went home right after the outdoor stuff had been done, but I think one contestant and the crew stayed for the studio log cabin shoots, the host stuff. So it was just done in such a short space of time, and I was just amazed that the rain held off. But then as we were leaving, it absolutely poured with rain, like as much as it can pour with rain. And I was just like, I don't think I've ever been more satisfied in my young adult life. I wasn't an adult, I was 14. In my young teenage life than I was then, because I've been working at this for so many months. I'd tried so hard to get something going with it. And I finally recorded one episode somehow. All the people showed up to the episode. Nobody flaked. It wasn't close to where they lived. It wasn't close at all. And it was going to be a disaster. It had been forecast to pour with rain, and the rain held off until the very end of the day. It did spit rain at different points in the shoot, but that didn't matter. That wasn't a big deal at all. We're using all this equipment though. We're using these really good mics. We're using amazing cameras, and somehow they didn't get wet, and somehow it worked out. So yes, that's my story of my TV show that I made. The actual recording is very basic, unfortunately. I mean, the commercials in my show is so freaking cool to look back on.
After the break, round 2 commences, and those two teams of 2 will battle against each other. Who will be victorious? We'll see after the break on Friday Challenge Games.
Vista RV Crossover, the way in 4x4 off-road camping. The 100% Australian owned and made crossover camper van is made tough to suit Australian conditions. Only the highest quality materials are used in the crossover. Amazing features of this ultimate off-road camper van include built-in stainless steel kitchen, ensuite, 240 volt and solar power, ample storage space and much more. Vista RV Crossover, the name to remember in the Outback Touring market. Check out vistarv.com.au for factory direct manufacture and sales.
Welcome back to Friday Challenge Games. If you saw it before the break, that was round 1.
It's kind of cringe. There's definitely an element of cringe there, but the cringe takes second stage to the actual effort that I put into this and the achievement of making this and then airing it on TV. I could have just, grown up 4 years later and gone, fuck that, I'm not airing that cringe to TV. That's embarrassing. But I thought, no, I don't want something that I always intended to go on TV. I don't want that to just sit on a hard drive forever. So to actually finish it properly and get it aired and it actually forever exists as a proper version is so cool. And thank you guys for watching this one. I mean, it's a different offbeat episode of Tracking Down the Tapes. It's the only one that's going to be like this. There's going to be another story time version of Tracking Down the Tapes that doesn't include any commercials. Much like this one, this did include commercials over the top of me talking. But yeah, that was episode 28 of Tracking Down the Tapes. My own memory of my own TV recording of my own show. You may have noticed my voice was a bit iffy during this. I was trying so hard for some reason. It's got some issues at the moment. I don't know why. So bear with me in future episodes if that proceeds, because talking a lot in a short space of time, I've done that a lot this year for recordings, and obviously my voice has given up on it, which is nice. Thanks guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little story of Friday Challenge games. The end.
Well, thanks for tuning in. It's been an honor. It was obstacle course night. Next week is a surfing theme. Who will be the king of the waves and who will win Friday Challenge games again? Make sure you tune in. I'm Sam Davis. Goodbye.
Goodbye.